Goldstein.
She did this morning.
Okay, we are being recorded. So good to welcome everybody. Let me see if I could. That's very interesting. Okay, we are learning the sugi today of Yesh Em Mikra or Yesh Em Mesiris, which is, do you focus on decree, which we call Yesh Em Mikra, or do you focus on the ksiv, which is Yesh Em Mesiris? How was this Shiloh relevant? How did it come into play? And that is because we know you need 3 dayanim for a din of dinei mominus. But Rebbe said you need 5 dayanim. Where did Rebbe get it from? If you remember, it said Elohim 3 times in the parsha of the Shomer Chinam. And Rabbi Yosy held that the first element is needed l'gufo. You never learn from the first time it says anything. Ein darshan tchilos. So we have 2 remaining Elohim. But the third one, it says Asher Yarshiun Elohim. Elohim. Yarshiun is pronounced as if there was a vav in it, which is referring to 2 people. So Zok Rebbe Asher Yarshiun Elohim means the second Elohim is referring to 2 people. Let's say if the second Elohim is referring to 2 people, the first Elohim is also referring to 2 people. 2 plus 2 is 4. You need to have a tiebreaker, so that's where he gets 5 for a bezin of dinei mominus. While the Rabbanan held Yesh Em Mesiris, it's not spelled Yarshiun with a vav. It's spelled Yarshiun without a vav, which is lashon yochid. So each Elohim means 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2, and the tiebreaker is 3. And that's the reason for the machlokes, if you need 3 dayanim for a dinei mominus tikkun Torah or 5 dayanim. But it's based on the machlokes of Yesh Em Mikra or Yesh Em Mesiris. So somebody asked a good question. The Torah is not trying to play games with us. Why doesn't the Torah just say what it means, right? Why would it say one thing if it means something else, right? It's not a wife, right? So why would the Torah say one thing if it means something else? So the Vilna Gaon says, unbelievable zod. Malachim. We might have a malachim here, we might not. So the Vilna Gaon says, whenever there's it's not machir. Whenever there's a kri and a ksiv, the accurate term that the Torah wants to use is the ksiv. That's right. The accurate version is really the ksiv. But since the ksiv would be too difficult for a human to understand, the kri is presented in such a way that it's easier to understand. That's what the Vilna Gaon said. So, as an example, I'm going to share one case with you that will illustrate precisely this idea. On Shabbos, I didn't have a calculator, but today I have a calculator, so it'll make it even more exciting. So it says in Malachim, when the Torah discusses Shlomo HaMelech building the Beis HaMikdash, the Navi discusses the Yam Shel Shlomo. Shlomo made a pool, and the Navi discusses its dimensions. So the Navi says that it was 10 amis across. So its diameter was 10 amis. The kav and its circumference, you have enough gewaltig, and its circumference was 30. Now we know that the diameter times pi, right? The diameter times pi, where 2 pi r, right, is the circumference. Pi is not 3. Pi is 3.1415, and it's an ongoing fraction. So really, when the Navi says that the diameter was 10 and the circumference was 30, that's not really accurate, right? Now, in the pasuk that describes it, it's very fascinating because there's a kri and a ksiv there, and I just want to find it. I want to find where it says it. I think it's Melachim Aleph Perek Zayin, I believe. I believe it's in Perek Zayin. It talks about this Yam Shel Shlomo. Vayas es hayam. Yeah, I'm going to put my camera on it. Vayas es hayam. Then I can even actually see it without putting my glasses on the tip of my nose. Vayas es hayam. Vayas es hayam. Mutzak. It was poured, meaning it wasn't chopped out. They poured it into a mold. Eser ba'ama misvosay atzvosay agoyim. So that means it was a 10 amma diameter, right? Saviv, The Chamish b'Mekamos, there was 5 on the side. You see the ksiv in the kri? The kri is vikov. Vikov and its circumference was shloishim ba'ama Yosef v'Yisrael. Now, the ksiv is vikavoy, vav kuf vavei. The kri is vav kuf vav, right? Vav kuf vav is gematria 112. Kuf vav vav is 112. Vav kuf vavei is 117. The fraction of 112 over 117, which is the kri over the ksiv, is the same fraction as 3 over pi to 6 decimal points. And I'm going to prove it to you because we'll cross multiply. When you cross multiply, that's how you can tell if two fractions are alike. So the way I'm going to cross multiply is I'm going to do 112 and 5 is 117. 117 times 3 divided by 112, right? Would you agree? Make sense, right? Okay, so 117 times 3 divided by 112. Oops. No, it's not exactly, but it's very, very close. I had a different cheshbon last time, but it's very, very close to pi. But it stems very, very nicely is because the kov is how we read it is 3. The kavoi is the ksiv is really what pi exactly is. If my numbers would have worked out.
You do 112.
What?
You do 112 divided by 3 times 117.
Oh, that's what I probably should do. No, let me just divide 112 divided by 117.
You won't get.
I do 3 divided by pi. Let me do 3 divided by pi. 3. I can go this way. I have to turn the calculator.
Put it on the screen so we can see it.
Yeah, I have to turn it sideways because then you get the fancy calculator. It's not working. Oh, here it is. Here's the fancy calculator. So pi. Oh, do I have pi on here? I don't think I have pi. I don't have pi. Here's a pi there. Oh, here's pi.
Yeah.
So 3 divided by pi. 3 divided by pi is 0.9549. Okay. Now let's do 112 divided by 117. How do I clear this? How do I clear this fancy calculator? You see a C? Oh, here. Okay. 112 divided by.
Yeah, other way around. Yeah. Oh, you got it.
So what was the other one?
Okay.
So you have 9.7 there? I'll remember 9.7. You do divided by pi. 0.9572. What do you have there?
3 divided by 5.
Okay, Sean, but it's pretty close. So that was based on the Vilna Gaon. That was based on the Vilna Gaon. I thought it was pretty cool. I love math and I love geometry and I love pi. So everything stems, everything works together. Okay, so Zok to Gemara weiter. Now we're going to get into the sugya of Yesh Aim Lemikra, meaning you go basher the Kri, or Yesh Aim Lemesiris, you go basher the Ksiv. Amr Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef. Amr Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yehuda ben Royitz, Ubei Shammai, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Kiva. 5 titans. Kulu Svir Lahu, Yesh Aim Lemikra. They all hold Yesh Aim Lemikra. You go basher the Kri, and you ignore the Ksiv. Rabbi Hadamar, he says Yarshiun, you read plural, right? Even though there's no vav there. Rabbi Yehuda ben Royitz. What was the story about Rabbi Yehuda ben Royitz? The Tanya. Alu Talmidim is Rabbi Yehuda ben Royitz as follows. We know the halacha is if a woman gives birth to a zachar, she's tamei for 7 days, and then she has yemei tahira for 33 days for a total of 40 days. Vim nekeva seileit, v'tama shivu ayim knidasa. For yemei tahira is 14 days. V'shishim yoyim v'sheshes yomim teishe v'dmei tahara 66 days. She's tahira, a total of 80 days. So her cheshbon is exactly double that of the zachar. Correct? Shivu ayim is spelled Shin Vez Ayin Yud Yud Mem. But that's not. But
the TV doesn't fit.
But that's not.
The TV won't fit.
But that's not what the Torah says. It says Shin Vez Ayin Yud Mem Shivim. So vim the kaiva seile, v'tama shivim kenidasa. Maybe her yemei tama aren't 2 weeks. Maybe they're 70 days. It all depends on if you follow the ksiv or the kri. If it's Yesh Em L'Mesaris, Yesh Em L'Mikra. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Roitz was asked. Shalom Talmidim is Rabbi Yehuda ben Roitz. Ekrani Shivim. It says in the pasuk, "V'tama Shivim." So is she tame for 70 days? Yochel Teheyer Ledis Nekeva Tamei Shivim. Amar Lahen, he told them with the whole cheshbon why it can't be. Because Tima V'tir B'Zachar. We know there was Yemei Tuma and Yemei Taira if someone gives birth to a Zachar. V'Time V'tir B'Nekeva. And the mother also has Yemei Tuma and Yemei Taira when she gives birth to a Nekeva. Makisha Tir B'Zachar. B'Nekeva Kiflayim. Just like the Yemei Tahira of a Zachar, which is 33. But in the cave, it's double, it's 66. So too the Yemei Tumah of the Zachar, which is 7 days. But the cave can fly him, but then the cave will be 14 days and not 70 days. That was a very good raya. But la'achar sheyotzu, after the Talmidim left his home or his besmedrish, yotzo umachzerachem, he ran after him and said, "Come back. I have a much simpler shot. You don't need his whole cheshbon." Amar lahen, iatem zekukim lekach. You don't need my whole Torah. Shivu ayim karinon. You don't look at the ksiv. You look primarily at the kri. And the way we read it, Yesh Em L'Mikra is Shivu ayim. Yesh Em L'Mikra. So you see clearly, Rabbi Yehuda ben Roitz says Yesh Em L'Mikra. Let me ask you a question. Do you know who argues on him over here? Nobody. He doesn't have a bar plukta here. That's important to point out. Beis Shammai did not. Beis Shammai doesn't have a machlokes. My Rebbe had a machlokes with Rabbanan about it. Beis Shammai is going to have a machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda ben Roitz is the only one who there's no machlokes quoted. It was just something that Rabbi Yehuda ben Roitz said. Beis Shammai, the time Beis Shammai oimer. Kol hanitnin al mizbech hachitzon shenosna b'matan achas kiper. Any type of carbon that you are normally makrib on the mizbech hachitzon, like a carbon oila, like a carbon shlomim, like a carbon osham, and a carbon chatos. Any one of these carbonis, they either need shtayim shehin arba, either the matnas dam required is one in each corner, right? So we need 2 matnas dam, or a chatos needs 4 matnas dam, 1 on each keren. So all of these carbonis, if you only did 1 matnas dam kiper, it will work with the Evid. But uvechatos, a chatos is excluded from the group that we just said, and there you require shtei matanis. Minimum would be 2 matanis. Beis Hillel argues and says, af bechatos shenosnon b'matan achas kiper. Even by a chatos, if you only put 1 drop of blood on the mizbeach, the carbon would be kosher. What is the machlokes? Yamarvuna, my time at the Beis Shammai, it's all about Yesh Em L'Mikra or Yesh Em L'Mesaris. Now the pasuk in Vayikra first starts talking about the korbanos chatas that are brought bifnim, the heavy duty ones, like the power of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur and the power of the Helam Dova Shal Tzibur, the big ones. Those are brought there. The dam are spritzed on the inside mizbeach. We're talking about the korbanos chatas that are the lower level ones, that are the spritz on the outside mizbeach, and the Torah talks about 3 such korbanos. The first one is if a nosi does an avera. It says there you should spritz the blood on the karnois mizbeach. Then if a person brings a chatas made out of an aiz, there it says the blood has to be spread on the 4 karnois mizbeach. And the third time it's mentioned is also a chatas yachid is discussed again if a sheep is brought. And again it says the dam has to be spritzed al karnois mizbeach. So 3 times it says karnois. Now, looking at the Gemara, you might think it says karnois with a vav all 3 times. But if you look up our chumash spells without a vav all 3 times. And right, it spells without of all 3 times. And there's actually a Chumash Rashba about whether or not we need to change the nusach of our Sefer Torah, because our Gemara had a different girsa in the Chumash than we do, because our Chumash reads without the vav, but our Gemara seems to be saying there is a vav there. So there's actually a discussion about it. The Art Scroll brings it down.
Discussion, that would be a revolution. That's not just a discussion. You're suggesting either the Gemara is wrong or our Torah is wrong, because this is a very
no elu ve'elu divrei l'kim chaim over here.
Yeah, right.
The Torah is only one divrei l'kim chaim. There's obviously one of the Gershon is right and one is wrong, and I don't know how we sort that out. But the Art Scroll speaks about it. You see, can you want to read the Art Scroll? It says he speaks to. So the Rashba says that we shouldn't change the Gershon in the Torah. It's actually, there's a discussion about it.
Well, we read it, chronos, so that's the sign, but why is that a discussion?
Because the Yeshem Lemikra, how we pronounce it is
Pronounce
Chronos,
it.
but how it's actually written, does it have a Vav or not?
Rashba and the Ram point out that our Torah scrolls have the word Karna spelled effectively all 3 times. Rashba
Defective.
stresses that we must follow our Masoretic text, even when the Gemara would seem to have had a different version.
Right.
Does anybody remember the Rav's son-in-law? I don't remember which son-in-law spoke one Yom Tov and spoke about someone who had the Sefer of Ezra Sefer, and there was a Yerusha, and he wanted the Sefer, and the father split it up. One guy gets the millions of dollars, and the other child will get the Sefer of Ezra, and there was a whole fight who should get it, and then someone came in and damaged the Sefer Torah. Do you remember that story? One of the Rav's Edemis spoke about it on Yom Tov. I have to dig up that story. It was a fascinating story. Is anybody online that remember the Rav's
I follow Rabbi
son-in-law speaking about it?
Uh-huh.
But it was a very fascinating story about the Sefer Torah of Ezra Sefer. I wonder what that one says. Anyway, so Karnos, Arei Kan Sheish. Now, if you look at the Likutei Rashi on the side, the Likutei Rashi says not all of them had a Devav. So let me look at the Likutei Rashi together with you. Shalosh Parshios Nemru Bechatois Hachitzonos. There's 3 different parshios, 3 paragraphs discussing the same type of chatos. The Vayikra. Achas is speaking about the Sir Nosi, Ubeis Bechatos Yochid, and 2 discussing a standard personal chatos. Achas Bekaspa, V'achas Besira. One with a sheep and one with a goat. Bishtayim, 2 out of the 3, Ksiv al Karnois, Chaser, without the Vav. Achas, Molei, and one of them is Molei. Again, I don't know which one, because by us they're all Chaser. So that's how the Gemara is assuming. So therefore, let's go back to Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai says Karnos. We read it Karnos. You go back to the Yesh Eim Lemikra, 2 + 2 + 2 is 6. Harei Kan Sheish. So where are the 6 Karnos? There's only 4 Karnos for Achatos. The Teretz is Arba LeMitzvah, 4 Lechatchila, it's a mitzvah to spritz the dam on 4 Karnos. Ushtaim Lakiv. By Kachim, whenever something repeats, it's a sign that it's Makiv. So since only 2 out of 4 were repeated, so you see the minimum for the carbon to be kosher would be 2. That's clear, Yesh Eim Lemikra, which is what we said earlier, that Beis Shammai holds Yesh Eim Lemikra, you go basher the creed. Uvesiloimim, Karnois. You go basher the Ksiv, only the first one has the Vav, the other 2 don't. So therefore, Harei Kan Arba, you only have 4, because the first Karnois is 2, but each of the second Karnois mean 1 only, so you have a total of 4. So we would darshan it differently. Gimel Mitzvah, the Achas La'akev. Since it says it 4 times, so out of the 4 times that it says it, 1 is La'akev, and the other 3 are just, it's a mitzvah to do it.
Why would Karnas without a Vav not mean
Karnas, the horn of Karnas HaMizbeach,
Karen.
the horn of the Mizbeach,
Karen?
but not the horns.
Karen was there to be a horn.
No, you're supposed to spritz it al Karnas. Well, Karen could also be. So now you're asking me about TikTok. I'm not able to help you with that. Okay. This is a very important subject to discuss. Kazok to Gemara, Karnas, Harei Hein, Harei Kan. Oh, this is on the video. This is on YouTube. Oy vey, not for children. Harei Kan Arba, Gimel Mitzvah, V'achas Liakev. So you see clearly a machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. If Yeshem Lemikra, Yeshem Lemesayres. Freit the Gemara, the Ema. We have to get to Gedolim to make a chayrim for anybody to listen to my shir. Then we'll get listeners. Freit the Gemara, the Ema Hulu Lemitzvah. Maybe all 4 are Lemitzvah. If it only says 4 times, where do you see anything lakiv? Maybe it's recommended to do 4 shrikas, but if you don't do any, it'll be kosher. Zok Gemara, that you wouldn't say. Kapar b'chti lo yashkech. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Epistap in the ton without any matnas dam, there's not going to be a kapar. So here we have another example of Beis Shammai holding Yeshem Lemikra and Beis Hillel holding Yeshem Lemesayres. Now let's look at Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon, how many walls does a sukkah have to have? So I think we hold it has to have 2 walls, and the 3rd wall could just be a tefach. But there's actually a machlokes about it. The Tanya Shtayim Kilchason, Ushlishish Afilu Tevach. That's the sheet of the Rabbanon. That's how we fear it. But Reb Shimon Omer Shalosh Kilchason Urevius Afilu Tevach. You need to have 3 complete walls, and the last wall, the 4th wall, could be a tefach. But my committally, what is the machlokes? Rabbanon Savi Yeshem Lemesayres. Rabbanan say you go basher the Messiahs, you go basher the Ksiv. Rab Shimon Savar Yeshem Lemikra, you go basher the Kri. What does it say? Rabbanan Savar Yeshem Lemessiahs. It says twice in one pasuk, Basukas Teishvu Shivas Yamim, and I'll read it inside. Basukas Teishvu Shivas Yamim, Kol Ezok B'Shol Yeshu Basukos. Both those words Sukkos don't have a vav. So the Ksiv is Basukas, and the Kri is Basukos. And the next pasuk has it with a vav. L'man yedu darei seichem ki basukos with a vav hashafti es b'nei Yisrael v'tzi oisam eretz Mitzrayim. So it says basukos harei kenarba, because the two ksivs are one sukkah each. The third ksiv is with a vav, it's two sukkahs. 2 plus 2 is 4 harei kenarba. So you start off with a requirement of 4 walls. Dal chad kra legufe. One you got to take off because you need to know b'chalal that there's something called a sukkah. So that's not extra. You don't darshan from that. Partial utlas.
Same idea as that.
I guess so. So you have 3 walls required. So now we know there's a requirement to have 3 walls. There's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai tells us about one of the walls that are required, that it doesn't have to be a full wall. 1 tefach is enough. Also hilchazah gar'ata l'shlishis v'ukimta atefach. So that's how you get 2 plus 1 tefach. But Rav Shimon Savri, Yeshem Lemikra, Besukos. Each one you read as a lashon of plural. Harek and Sheish. So you have 6 to start with. Dal Chatkra, you got to take off 1 pasuk completely, which is 2 legufei, because you can't dash them the first time it says it. Pashu luhu arba. We're left with 4 walls. Asoy hilchasa, and the halacha l'Moshe Mishina comes to tell us about one of the 4 required walls. Garata l'revi v'ok me'ataf. So you have another example of a machlokes of Yeshem Lemikra, Yeshem Lemessiahs. And then there's Rebbe Kiva. We have another example. The Tanya Rebbe Kiva Omer. Minayin l'revius dam. The halacha is a revius dam of a human is mitama ba'oil. But what if there's 2 humans who died, and a half a revius dam came out of one, a half a revius dam came out of the other, and they got mixed together. So now you have a revius dam. But it's not a revius dam from one person, it's a revius dam combined from 2 people. Is that enough to create tumas oil? How do you know that they are mitama ba'oil? Shenemer al kol nafshois plural meis lo yavod, but there's no vav there. So it's the mikra is nafshois meis. Even if there's dam that come combined from 2 nefashos, that will also be mitama ba'oil. Shtei nefashos v'shir echad. For Rabbanon, they all know it wouldn't be tamei, because nefashos ksiv without the vav, which is nefshas, meaning there has to be a revius dam from one person, and therefore it wouldn't be tum. So another example of the machlokes of Yeshem Lemikra, Yeshem Lemessiahs. Maskav lo Rab Acha bar Yaakov. Mi'iko de lesla Yeshem Lemikra. You're actually quoting me multiple machlokes and in each machlokes you were here to display someone who holds Yeshem Lemikra. But in all of these cases, the Bar Plukta said we ignored the Mikra. It's Yeshem Lemessiahs. But you can't get away from Yeshem Lemikra. Everybody has to agree to Yeshem Lemikra. Because Vatanya, V'chalei v'imai. How do you know that chalei v'imai means the milk of its mother? Maybe it means with the chalev, V'chalev v'imai. You can't tell. Without Yeshem Lemikra, unless you rely on the Kabbalah of how we pronounce it, you wouldn't know anything. So clearly everybody must agree that the thing you focus on is not the word that's written, rather the word that's pronounced. You might have thought that the Isser is to eat milk with chalev. Amrit, the answer to that is Yesh Eim Lemikra. And therefore, V'lekaman de Polak, nobody argues. The Ipligi, if somebody would argue about this, Basar B'chalav is not on the Asr. Everybody agrees Basar B'chalav is Asr. If you don't know the Yesh Eim Lemikra, Basar B'chalav should not be Asr. So because of that, we're forced to say that everybody must agree Yesh Eim Lemikra, which means now we have to go back to all the discussions we had and explain all the arguing shitas, all the dissenting opinions, even though they held Yesh Eim Lemikra. So let's go through them. Let's start with our sugya first. Rebbe held Yeshem Lemikra Asher Yarshion Elohim means that there's 2 dayanim referred to in the Asher Yarshion Elohim. Therefore, we'll say the first Elohim also means 2 dayanim. 2 plus 2 is 4. V'Rabbanon b'Hakam Evli. Rebbe Savar Yarshion Elohim Achrini, which means Yarshion Elohim. The second Yarshion is referring to 2 dayanim because it says Yarshion there, and if the second Elohim is referring to 2 dayanim, the first Elohim is also referring to 2 dayanim. But the Rabbanan say no. Yarshion the Heichav the High. Yarshin of two people. Why? This Elohim and that Elohim. But each one only means one. So they both hold Yesh Shem L'Mikra. Yarshin means two. But who are the two we're referring to? According to Rabbanan, the two that we're referring to is the one Elohim in this pasuk and the one Elohim in the previous pasuk. So therefore, even if the both hold Yesh Shem L'Mikra, there's still an opportunity for the Rabbanan to learn that it's only two. Beautiful. What about Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda ben Yoetz? That's not a problem. Lei pligi Rabbanale, as we pointed out earlier. There is nobody arguing. So there's no issue there, no explanation required. Beis, how is Beis going to know that even by a chatos, you only have to spritz one matan dam, b'di'evet? It can't be because he holds karnois, you go both of the ksiv, and it's single, because we already said everybody holds Yeshem L'Mikra. So Beis must have a different reason. And here is the reason, the Tanya. In each of these three parashiyos, the chatas anosi, the chatas with a sheep, and the chatas with a goat, it uses the lashon v'chiper. And Rashi tells us that v'chiper has a connotation umash with the sogi b'kapora achas. So v'chiper, it says in each parsha v'chiper, which is mashma one kapora enough. Mipnei hadin, we need it because of the logical argument that might have told us to the contrary. And what is that logical argument that might have told us to the contrary? V'alaydinu. Let's think about it. Nemar domim lamata. It says domim lamata. Rashi has two pshatim in what domim lamata means. Either it means chatas ha'oif. Chatas ha'oif is discussed in the Chumash after these chatois of behemah that we discuss. That's one thing that it could be referring to. So let's use that pshat, and we'll go through the Gemara with it, and then I'll go back to the other pshat of Rashi, and I'll go through the Gemara with it. So nemar domim lamata. The Torah talks about chatas ha'oif later on. And here by Chatas, we're also discussing the Zerikas Dam. Do you know how you make Zerikas Dam by a Chatas Oif? What you do is you take the bird and you squeeze the blood out from its neck on the wall of the Mizbeach. There's only one Matas Dam by the bird. So Ma'adam Hamurim Lamata Shenosnam B'Matanachas Kiper, just like by a Chatas Oif. If there's only one Matas Dam, it would be kosher. That's the way it's supposed to be done. Av Damim Hamurim Lamayla, so too when it says all the Damim about this rika of all the chatois earlier in the pasuk where we're holding shenos and b'matanachas keeper it would work. That's one way to look at it. Or maybe on the other hand, analyze it differently. Dem or dam and b'chutz. The Torah talks about spritzing dam and all the chatois that are brought on the outside mizbeach, where you spritz the dam on the outside mizbeach. Right before these chatois, the Torah discusses the chatos of Yom Kippur and the Paral Shel Tzibur. The dam on those korbanos are spritzed inside the Mishkan or inside the Beis Hamikdash on the Mizbeach Hazohav. Some of them on the Paroiches, even some of them by Kodesh Kodeshim on Yom Kippur. Ma damim hamurim b'fnim chiser achas mimatonos le'osv leklum. All of those chatois that are brought inside, that the dam are brought inside, if even one matnas dam was missing, the entire korban is disqualified. Maybe all chatois should be that way. Avdomim ha'amurim b'chutz chiser achas mimatonos le'osv leklum, and it should invalidate the whole korban. So, which way do you look at it? You compare it to other karbonos of chutz, or do you compare it to other chatois? Near l'midoyma. Let's think who is the regular chatos more similar to. Don in chutz michutz, vein don in chutz mipnim. Maybe we should don chutz michutz, not chutz mipnim, and say that one is enough. Or on the other hand, kalach l'derech zu. Don in chatos v'dalat karnois, mechatos v'arba karnois. Don a chatos which requires l'chatchila 4 zrikas from the chatos pipnim that needs 4 zrikas. But al yochiach zeh, and don't bring me a raya from chatos ha'oif she'ein chatos v'dalat karnois. It's not a chatos and it doesn't need dalat karnois. So the first question that we have to jump on is it is a chatos. It's a chatos ha'oif.
It's not a chatos that requires 4 karnois.
Oh, so you have to limp shot like Shlomi just said. It's not a chatos that requires 4 karnois. Talmud Loimer, therefore the Torah says v'chiper v'chiper v'chiper. Mipnei hadin, because of this argument that you might want to compare it to the chatas pnimi and be mechayev for zrikas b'diavad. So therefore, the default is you need 4 zrikas, but it says v'chiper to say that you can go away without you could miss one. Keeper alpha pishlei nosan lo shloisha. Then it says keeper again alpha pishlei nosan lo shtayim. Then it says keeper a 3rd time alpha pishlei nosan ela achas. So that is the machlok is nothing to do with it. Everyone holds yeshem The Mikra, it all depends on how you read it, but there's a special limit of v'chiper. And now I'm going to learn the same Gemara again, using the other pshat in Rashi that Rashi says I like better. So let's go back again. It's not complicated. It's very, very simple. The Tanya v'chiper mipnei hadin. There's a logical argument to be made. V'ledinu nemer domim l'mata. It talks about domim that you spritz below the chut sikra. Which karbonas do you spritz the dam below the chut sikra? The chut sikra was a line that marked the halfway point in height of the mizbeach. So you spritzed blood on the lower half of the mizbeach. That was the dam of the oila. I'm sorry.
What was the
That was lamata later on in the parsha. It says it. There lamata means later on in the parsha. Here lamata means you're spritzing the dam below the chut sikra. So the oila, the asham, the shlomim. So it talks about dam that you spritz on the lower end. The nemar but in the case of the chata soif, it might not be lamata, it might be lamayla, because if it's at the end, if the first chata is at the bottom of the column, not the top of the column, it's lamayla. So v'chiber mipnei v'aloi dinu never dam lamata by all other commands. We never dam lamayla by chatas. Ma damim hamurim lamata by the oila, the shlomim.
How you would say which ones are below
the shlomim, the oila, and the osham. So just like those, shenotim b'batana achas keeper, it will be mechaper anyway. One is enough. Avdamim mamur l'mayla shenotim b'batana achas keeper. Oy kalach v'lerchzu. Never dam b'chutz, never dam b'fnim. Ma dam mamur b'fnim, meaning the parallel shel tzibur. Chizer achas b'matana is loyasol leklum. Avdam mamur b'chutz, chizer achas b'matana is loyasol leklum. Nearly midayma. Dam b'chutz b'chutz, v'in dam b'chutz b'fnim. Oy kalach v'lerchzu. Then the chat is dalakanis, the chat is v'arbekarnis. Here it's better, not a chatas at all. So this fits in better. So since we had a svara, therefore we say keeper alpha p shloisha. That's keeper number one. Keeper number two is alpha p shloisha l'shayim, and keeper alpha p shloisha l'achas. And the Gemara decides that this pshat is a keeper. Right? Developing, even if you hold yeshem l'mikra. Now let's go to Reb Shimon and Rabbanon, who are arguing about how many walls a sukkah needs. And the question is, Yesh Eim Mikra. And since we pronounce each one plural, we should have 4 walls, and one could be a smaller, or it's the Yesh Eim Mesiris, and 2 of the sukkahs are singular. Therefore, it's only 3 walls with 1 diminished. So Reb Shimon and Rabbanon Balkabligi, everybody holds the Yesh Eim Mikra, and therefore you're starting off with 6 walls. But Reb Shimon Savar, Reb Shimon holds that the schach doesn't need one of the sukkahs. You don't have to use up one of the word sukkahs for schach. It's obvious that every sukkah needs schach. So therefore you have 6 available sukkahs, right? One you take with the gufa, and the other 2 are 4. For Rabbanan Savar, no, schach b'ikra. So yes, you start off with 4 sukkahs, but one of them you need to use to tell you that you need schach. So you're left with only 3 walls, and that's why you have 3 walls, and one could be diminished. So again,
Yes.
one moment. It has nothing to do with the machlokes of Yeshem l'mikra. Everybody can hold Yeshem l'mikra. The question is, you might have used up one of your sukkahs.
Yes, if we're saying schach aloi b'ikra.
I'm sorry?
If we're saying schach aloi b'ikra, then why don't we also say you don't need a wall? No, we don't need a pasuk to tell me you need at least 1 wall, because the same way you need a top to a sukkah, you at least have to have 1 wall.
It's a very nice aura. Very nice aura. So let's have a quick look. In Rashi. Reb Shimon Rabbanon, Kulu yesh em l'mikra shvirlu. They all hold yesh em l'mikra, and each sukkah is 2. V'chimadlis chad b'sukkah is l'gufei. When you take one word completely away, l'gufei, pashu l'abo you have left. You have 4 left. Al Rabbanon sarvi schach abo yikra. You need a pasuk to tell you schach. And therefore pashu l'hu gimel defanais v'garata. And it takes away 1. Therefore, and the minimizes the 3rd. Reb Shimon Zavar loy b'ikra. You don't need a pasuk. The mikra, the medalinon lugufei nafka. The first word sukkah that we use to tell you b'chlal the lachav sukkah. There you know schach. The beloy schacha loy mikri sukkah. Without any schach, it's not a sukkah. But that doesn't necessarily mean without 4 walls, it's not a sukkah. Maybe only 3 walls, maybe only 2 walls.
1 wall. I'm only talking about 1 wall. 1 wall is extra. The first wall.
We have let's say 4 walls. We need 1 to tell us schach. So we have 3 left. To tell you those 3 are extra, That's how we know you need 3 walls. And then the Halacha Moshe Mashiach tells us about the 3rd wall that it can be different.
If you have only one wall, you can't even, what supports the schach?
You got posts.
Yeah, poles, yeah. Okay, true.
Okay, so that takes care of the machloikis of Reb Shimon Rabban and Sukkah. That
The whole
both
sukkah means, the sukkah actually means protection. That's the etymological source of the word. One wall doesn't give you any protection.
I hear. How protected do you feel in the regular sukkah, in the canvas sukkah? Yeah, the schach. I mean, I think it's like you're shielding from the sun. But I hear, okay, they're all good for us. Okay, I'll call upon them. We have a way out where both Reb Shimon and the Rabbanan can both hold Yeshem Lamikra. Now let's get to the discussion of Reb Akiva and the Rabbanan about nafshois. Can a revius dam come from 2 different bodies? Reb Akiva and Rabbanan, Reb Akiva's over nafshois tati mashma. It says nafshois, meaning even one revius of dam that originates from 2 bodies is considered a revius of dam that's matama. Rabbanan sarvi nafshois da alma mash, which says Val kol nafshois meis lo yavoy. It means don't come on any mace. It's not referring to 2, but after 2 people. It means in general, of all the mesim in the world, don't come into contact with any mesim. But uduchula alma yeshem lamikra. But everybody would hold yeshem lamikra. So now the Gemara is saying, so you're telling me it's inevitable. Everybody has to hold yeshem lamikra. I'll prove to you that people have to hold yeshem lamasiris. So in any way you go, we're going to attack you, right? I'll prove to you need to hold yeshem lamasiris. But Tanya, we learned, how do we know that a shell roish has 4 bottom? Because it says l'toita fois without a vav. So so you read it l'toita fas 1, l'toita fas 1, and the last one is l'toita fois. So 1 + 1 + 2 is 4. Harekan arba. So that's how you have 4 bottom. So that's clearly using the svara of yesh aim l'masiris. So how can you tell me everybody else Yeshem Lamikra? You see clearly you need to rely on Yeshem Lamasiris, Divrei Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Kiva Omer, Ein Yitzarech, you don't need it. Here we'll for sure need David Zoltan's help. Because the word Taitafos is a combination of 2 foreign languages. Tat, the Caspi, in the language of Caspi, I'm not sure which country that is, means Stein, 2. And Tas, the Afriki, the African language means 2. So why the Torah decided to speak in foreign languages? Tatfas, basically it's putting 2 and 2 together, right? From 2 different languages. That's where you get 4. You sometimes, I think one other place you find in the Torah that the Torah used a non-Hebrew word, maybe by hin. Maybe hin is some foreign language word. But why does the Torah use foreign language words?
The only other one, yeah, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
So Rav Yaakov has a piece on this. So he holds that originally that was the Lashon HaKodesh, but it fell out of usage. But some languages still have that usage and in usage. That's what he's saying.
So it really was originally a Hebrew word that was adapted by these other countries. Okay,
It was
like rear axle kadmi is a Hebrew word that means front axle. Rear axle kadmi. Because they don't have that rear is a place. So they think the axle at the back is called a rear axle. So a rear axle kadmi is a front axle. So it's not like that. If we're talking, Akiva, what did you want to say?
I think the only other Aramaic words is Yigar Sahadusa.
Oh, that's
but
right.
that's right. That's where but that's really
no,
an
that's a
Aramaic
translation of
but the Torah told us that.
of Galaid.
word of Galed. Yes, so that's
just
that's
a
what Lavan called.
translation. So that's the Aramaic, and this is the Lashon HaKodesh.
If we're talking about
Taitafais now became Lashon HaKodesh. Is the word Taitafais Lashon Kodesh now?
According to Rav Yaakov, was always a Lashon HaKodesh. It was adopted somehow. It fell out of usage in Lashon HaKodesh, but it was I wouldn't say it was adopted. Somehow words in other languages, we have that in French and English, right? We use the same words. Arrive, arrive, and arrive, right? There are similarities. So the same thing could apply there. You hear?
Yes, I know. But when I say arrive, I'm speaking in English. If I say arrive, I speak in French. When I say
But
totafos,
you see
am I
how
speaking
close
Hebrew?
they are. You see how close. That means there's a relationship between the two languages. There are certain words in languages.
Okay,
And
but
you have multiple examples of this all over the place.
I understand. But is the word totafos in Lashon Kodesh? What language is it? If I ask Google what language is totafos, what is it going to tell
Okay,
me?
so languages evolve, okay? So at one time, it was Lashon HaKodesh. People understood it to be Lashon HaKodesh. In the time when the Torah was written, it was Lashon HaKodesh. But it fell out of usage.
So now it's not Lashon Kodesh anymore. So in order for me to understand it, I have to go to a different language
It's
to
still,
find it there.
no, it's still Lashon HaKodesh, but it's not in use.
So you wouldn't recognize it.
I see. Okay.
That's
I
according to
want to
Rav
share a
Yaakov.
gewaltige, simply pshat. We're talking about the words of
That's
the
Rav
Chumash.
Yaakov.
Yeah, but I'm talking about a simply pshat. So in simply pshat, the Mechaber asked a beautiful kasha that Yaakov wanted to diffuse the dream and show the brothers that there's no value to the dream, so that they shouldn't be jealous of Yosef. So he said, "Ma chalom hazeh shechalamta." And Rashi says, your mother's not alive. How could she come? Right? So the Balha, simply pshat, where does it say anything over here about the Brachel's not alive? So the simply pshat quoted from a Berlozer Brunner.
Right.
That if you look at these words, Asher Chalamta Havoi, the last letter of Asher is Reish. So let's look. Rachel, Mesa. So it says it right within those words, which reminds me of another story, and that is who said it meant Rachel? Maybe it meant Dina. Yosef had a sister Dina. How about her? Maybe it meant Dina. So the teres that they say to that, which is important for every chassan to know, is very, very simple. Dina, according to certain pshatim, was the mother of the daughter of Potiphar, really that she was adopted, and she was born through the union of Dina and Shechem. So she was sent down. I don't know how she got there, but Dina might have been Yosef's mother-in-law. The answer is, even in your dreams, your mother-in-law ain't bound down to you. So it could not have possibly meant Dina. Okay. Zog the Heilige Gemara weiter. So Vatanya, L'Taita Fois, Arekanarba. So you see, it's very much alive. This svara of Yesh Aim L'Mesiris. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva, Menitzarech, Tat Bekaspi Yishtayim, and Pat Bafriki Yishtayim. Ella La'olam Pligi. You must say that there is a machlokes, and there are legitimate Tanoim that hold Yeshem L'Mesiris and not Yeshem L'Mikra, as is clearly illustrated in this machlokes between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. So then we have a problem, because if there are people who hold Yeshem L'Mesiris and not Yeshem L'Mikra, how do we know that Basar B'chalav is also? Gemara, you know when there's a dispute as to whether or not you hold Yeshem L'Mikra, Yeshem L'Mesiris? Panimiliki Pligi Heicha Doshani Kra Mi Mesiris. That's if the pronunciation would change the spelling. Yarshion plural has evolved. Yarshion not plural doesn't have evolved. Sukkos plural has evolved. Sukkas singular doesn't have evolved. But by milk, cholav and chelav are exactly the same spelling. Aval hai cholav and chelav the chiadodininu. Since they both have the same spelling, there, even if you hold Yeshem L'Mesiris, there will agree that Yeshem L'Mikra, you can give credence to the fact that the Messiah is to read it as cholav. Frank the Gemara, I'll prove to you wrong, because I'll show you, even when it's spelled the same, you still focus on the Yeshem L'Mesiris. It says, Shalosh Pam Bashana, Yera'eh Kol Zuchuras Pnei Hashem, right? But it really could be read Yira, but without a spelling difference. And we learn there's a machlokes over here, upligi, and there's a machlokes about it as follows: the Tanya Yochanan ben Dahaboy Omer, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema, Hasuma b'achad me'enav. If someone is blind in one eye, he's potter from being oil regel. You know why? Potter min ha're'iyah shenemar, because it says in the pasuk, I'm going to learn it like Tosfos, and then when you ask me a kasha and say it doesn't make sense, then I'll tell you Rashi's pshat. So potter min ha're'iyah shenemar yera'eh yira yera'eh. you will see, you will be seen. Kederch shabo lirois, the same way you're coming to look at Hashem, kach bo lirois, that's how you need to be when you're coming to be seen by Hashem. Mal lirois, just like in order to see b'shtei einov, you need to have your full vision. Af lirois, so too when you're going to be seen b'shtei einov, you have to have your full vision. So what do I expect you to ask me on that? First of all, who said lirois has to be? You might see with one, but Hashem can see with two eyes. So the Rashi is differently. The way I teach it as lirois is you seeing Hashem, and lirois is Hashem seeing you. That's not a Rashi learns. Rashi learns lirois is Hashem seeing you, but we're talking from Hashem's perspective. Lirois is the same thing. Hashem seeing you, but it's from your perspective. He's seeing you. So the same way, so Kishem, so we'll read it differently over here. Kederech shabo lirois, the same way you're coming to be seen by Hashem, right? For Hashem to see you, when Hashem sees you, He surely has full vision, and He can see you. Kach bo lirois, so too, when you're becoming to be seen, you have to have your full vision. Mal lirois is b'shtei einov, af lirois b'shtei einov. So you see clearly there's a yesh. They're spelled the same, and we still talk about the yesh em l'mesiris. So at the end of the day, we've got a problem. There is a machloikis, and it goes both ways. So oy bazoi, how do we know if you hold yesh em l'mesiris? How do you know that there's an iser basar b'cholov? Maybe there's an iser basar b'chelav. Ela amar vacha b'reder vika, because amar kra loy sevashel gedi derech bishul osra Torah. The iser here is an iser that you're over with cooking. When you cook fat, that's not called cooking. That's called frying. So therefore, if there's a question of bishul, it must be there's a liquid here, it must be that it's milk. So we know it's milk because milk can be cooked, fat cannot be cooked. That is Rashi's shot. Tosfos is a different shot. The iser is of Tosfos only if you cook it. Without cooking, it will be perfectly mutter. Chaylev, you can't eat, even if it's raw. I don't do the cooking. So therefore, it has to be referring to something that will only be osher if you cook it together, which would be basar b'cholov. And that fakir b'kiveger, I don't understand. The word chaylev is not only used to describe chaylev that's osher, fat and non-dire animal is also called chaylev. So maybe the Israel of Loshavashel Gedi Bachalev Imoy is don't cook a Gedi in chaylev of the mother, but not chaylev that's osher, the other chaylev. That's what Kiveger's kash. Okay, we'll stop here, and Be'ez Hashem, we will be mamshich tomorrow.
Yosy,
Yes.
what's your schedule tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow morning we're learning at 7, and then the 9 o'clock shir is not going to be at 9; it'll be after the siyum.
Okay.
So the siyum is going to start 8. It's probably going to go till probably 9.
Oh,
No, Sim starts 9.
Oh, the siyum starts 9. It's probably going to go
Quarter
till
9.
after Avram Weisbrot finishes his drasha, because Avram Weisbrot is speaking.
we can speak in both
So
languages.
and if the Rav speaks as well, depending on how many people speak.
Oh, yeah, Akiva is the Rav speaking?
I don't know. Nobody asked me about a program. I can do a rerun from the last Sim if you want.
No, I was under the. Shaul told me
Very
that they
well.
asked of Avram Weisbrot to speak, and they didn't ask the Rav to speak. So it'll just be Avram. So Rabbi Daniel is being Messiah, Baba Basra. I'm going to start Sanhedrin, and I just asked them for a favor to laugh at the same stale joke that I already said. I'll hold up a sign and laugh here, insert laugh here, and then we're going to bench. Okay, shkoyach everybody, have a good tava.
Okay, so Yossi, just
Yes.
quickly, did you speak to Mintzberg about Yarshion? Because I asked him in the morning.
No, why would I speak to my Yeshian? I want to watch you speak to him.
Oh,
wouldn't speak to
okay,
him.
it was already, and he said Yarshia, and I said, okay, that's different than the Gemara, and then he said, oh, I have to look it up now. I have to check. So he was on the ropes.
1-on-1.
Yeah, it was in the morning.
This is something that shouldn't be on the public.
Okay, we'll see what happens tomorrow. I'll get him tomorrow on
Okay,
it.
shkoyach.